Thank you all so much for being here. I'm Elle McShane Wolfhart. I am the Art Wolf. Thank you. I just realized, Erin, can you grab water for the panelists? Sorry. So I just want to quickly introduce everyone. They're obviously going to go more into their, you're going to learn more about who they are. So on the end here, we have Denise Silva, and you'll see her works up here. I've tried to position the artists in front of their pieces. Here's Sharon Shapiro with her soft conjuring bunny, a couple of painting collage. And Justina Blakeney over here with Lila and Unplug. And we have the renowned art critic, Shana Nys Dambrot. Thank you so much for moderating this panel. And I'm just going to add one more thing. I read recently that the word vagina means sheath for a sword. And yoni means portal to the universe. So let's start with that.
I just want to say a couple things before I hand it over to the artists to tell you about themselves in their own words, which is, again, thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for trusting me with this timely and important and engaging set of topics. We did a little pre-thing, and so I want to pre-interview with everyone. So I just want to say a couple things and get them out of the way, which is, it is so tempting to discuss the matriarchy in social, political, broad strokes, aspirational, historical, looking back, looking forward, what we want. I personally walk around disappointed in the current system we have, occasionally incandescently infuriated by it. And so I understand that impulse. But I think what I really want to make sure we try to do as much as we can today is characterize those different kinds of, for one thing, expound on the ways in which the matriarchy is far from a monolith, and kind of that's the point of it, but to make sure we understand that there are different visions of what that even could look like. But the most important thing is how those things manifest and are expressed and activated in the artwork we are all here to see and encounter and discuss specifically, because as you will hear repeatedly, these are more than just images, more than just pictures. I love, though they are gorgeous works of art, what they each are in their own different ways is a sort of intentional activation and co-creation of something that exists on this continuum of already inside of us, emerging, waking up, hopefully setting a path for a different way of humanity to exist together. One that in general is characterized more by things like empathy and inclusivity than the patriarchal late-stage capitalist system under which we currently labor. And so all of that is like a tant donné. We all feel that way. What I want to do now is go down the row and have every artist here introduce themselves, talk, and what we're going to start teasing out is the ways in which all of those things and a million further things that flow from them exist and are put into the work and come out of the work, since each strategy is as unique as each woman. Yes, I'm going to start with you because you're right next to me. Hello.
Hi.
Please tell them everything about yourself.
Oh my goodness. Hi, everybody. I'm Justina Blakeney. Such a pleasure and an honor to be here with all of you this, I think it's still morning, no, afternoon. I am an artist, and I'm also a designer and the founder of the home decor lifestyle brand Jungalow. Got some jungleistas out here. I am also a mom, and I'm also a daughter and a sister and a friend and a woman.
Hello, Is this on? Yes. Hi, I'm Sharon Shapiro, and I am here from Virginia, Charlottesville. I know a lot of people on the West Coast confuse that with Charlotte, North Carolina, but it's a small town in Virginia. And I thought about this before I came this morning. I've been an artist for as long as I can remember, and I've been making work and showing work for over 30 years. Figurative work, women, dealing with the interiority and versus the societal expectations. But I was like, some of that sounds so boring. So I'm going to tell you one fun fact about me that not that many people know. So when I was 10 years old and it was Halloween, everybody wanted, all my friends wanted to dress up like Wonder Woman because it was the late 70s and that was, who was popular, or a princess or something like that. And I dressed up like Phyllis Diller. So I don't know if you know who that is, but that kind of, I always thought if somebody writes a book about me, that picture of me as Phyllis Diller holding a long cigarette with a crazy wig needs to be the cover. So anyway, that's that.
That was cute. Hello, my name is Denise Silva, and I'd like to introduce myself and also my matriarchs that I always bring with me into any space. So my mother, Louisa, my grandmother, Mary, and my great-grandmother, Otila. And I guess that's a good way to kind of segue into what I do. I'm an artist, a storyteller. Ancestral memory is very much a part of my work. I'm also a mother. I'm from the Inland Empire, so it took me a minute to get here when I'm here. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to just kind of getting into the topic at hand, symbolism and matriarchy. And yeah, happy to be here.
It probably took about as long to drive here as it took you to fly here. Let's be real. Thank you all for making it. I only came from downtown, but that's still not nothing. Okay. All right. Okay. So there's a million different places I could start, but I think the idea of motherhood is a really interesting one because I do not have children. And the reason I do not have them is that I never wanted them. This is not a tragedy for me. Oh, poor thing. So, and it has to do though with the matriarchs in my family, my grandmother who sort of mostly raised me. A lot of Gen Xers have a story like that. And she on her deathbed was like, listen, your sister's gonna have plenty of kids. You don't need to worry about it. If it's not for you, don't sweat it, basically. And I was like, cool. So that kind of became something that was like helpful to me. However, what I want to say about that is that I think that the idea of being a mother is something that is so interesting because it is both hyper-specific and exquisitely physical and very literal in your house and your life. It's a thing that you do forever now. But the idea of mothering as a life-giving, caretaking, following through a safe space, creating kind of dynamic is not only something that is entirely available to not only child-free women, but literally every human if they want, although I feel that it is a feminine coded energy. It's not necessarily entirely female. That gets into something we're going to come back to later, which is pulling apart the often unhelpful binary that it's really easy to slip into when you go patriarchy, matriarchy. It's really easy to conflate that with male, female, when in fact that's hardly ever the actual issue. It's masculine and feminine energies, and we all have both, and it's really about balance and other things. And so all of that is a lot, it's everything. But I would really love to begin with this idea of sort of unpacking that kind of archetypal energy of the mother, and how each of you have experienced that in your life, in your own motherhood, but also as a broader energy and sort of way of being in the world, if that makes sense. We'll start with you and come back this time.
Oh, okay.
Well, you brought all the women in your family with you, so
I did.
Of course,
I
we're going to
did.
start with you.
And when I say this, I know it kind of blows people's minds, but I am a mother and I have 6 children. And so I really feel like the mothering aspect is very, very much, that's the lens that the work is from. And also, I have been studying Divine Mother cosmology for probably about 5 years. And again, that's deeply, deeply intertwined in the work. And we had this conversation earlier, but with the births that I had 2 hospital births and 4 home births, and 3 of those were water births. And the journey that you take as a mother, as a birthing person, that's like initiation after initiation. And I really do believe that I picked up a lot of ancestral memory, a lot of codes, light codes, and just things that I don't think I would have ever learned about myself or the world or the spirit world had I not taken that journey, which I do call it the underworld. When you are in labor, when you are a birthing person, you are taking a journey in that birth labyrinth, and you are taking a journey and you are being initiated into something. And I maybe if I would have had 1, 2 births, I wouldn't have really caught on to that. But after so many, and spending that time, you go really deep into yourself. And I think that is really, really the place that birthed a lot of my art, is that's the place that I just picked up all that information and I saved it with me, because obviously when my children were small, I had a very long period, a sabbatical, I like to call it, where I was not doing any art because I was caregiving and nurturing children and like literal works of art. I call my youngest daughter my masterpiece. So I was like, you're really my masterpiece, And but yeah, so definitely very, very much intertwined, entrenched, all the words I could use to describe. For me, the motherhood has very, very much it's really, really encoded. Matriarchy. Yeah, it's just really encoded into in my work. Yes.
No, I love that. And I love that, I mean, they're every word, right? But the idea that is paired in your life also with a more, for lack of a better word, academic pursuit of the global histories of matriarchal archetypes is, I mean, I think there's one way in which you could almost probably be teaching that course at this point instead of taking it. Yeah. But I think that gets into really interesting ideas about the way, and again, this is something that I guess technically everyone has access to, but there is a common understanding between and among women that that somatic knowledge is a real thing, that there are other ways to learn than by being taught or by being read out of a book, but that our body actually physically carries epigenetic memories, for lack of honestly, it could be epigenetic trauma as well. It's not like everything the body remembers is lovely. The body just remembers everything. And when you start to kind of think about passing that down through a matrilineal line, and you realize what you obviously know, which is that it can also remember things that have happened before it existed. And then now you're really talking, now you're getting into, time being like collapsed through the survival of the female line, because everything that happened is still happening, and it's happening in your body, and it's happening in your children. And the being able to kind of stand in time and look forward and back that way is something that's quite physical, right? And so for me, I find the beauty of that, and I find the idea that that might be best expressed in visual art and poetry very clear, because Apollonian linear binary thinking logic is not the way to get at it. You need to kind of match the energy of the communication of it to the thing itself, which I feel like is something all of you are doing in different ways.
It's definitely something that I feel like in general, a lot of people are not familiar with. Obviously, they have not been to like the birthing realm. So I think because that energy is so like heavy in my work, I bring it with me anywhere I show my work. And I have this joke, I always say, I bring the titties and the coochie to whatever space that I show. So it's usually going to be women that are nude or breasts. I don't think I have any in these pieces, but they usually have a drop of milk coming out of the breast. And just, I like it to be almost like in your face and a reminder for people, like a mother, like have respect, a matriarch, like, yeah, have some respect, have some honor for people who give life, for people that have a birth portal. And I know our culture that is not the case. So I really feel like this is what I bring to any space that I come into.
And thank you for doing that. Honestly, I appreciate that. I think we all do. Right? I love that, like, there's like hype women here for all of you guys. Like, that makes me so happy. Okay, so similar question. I mean, because I think it's such a good sort of way in, and then it gets to everything. But what I love about your work too is that it kind of follows on and kind of follows the experience of the women as they come into society as well. And sort of like at what, I don't want to put too much on you, but I feel that there is a relationship. Like, I'm obviously, the piece that's behind you has so much in common with like European, art, historical, royal portraiture of like, and yet, is quite clear in some of its symbolism. It's like screaming at you, I'm beautiful, but it's pretty clear that there's a lot going on right under the surface that might be less than beautiful, and there's very deliberate choices. And I wonder if you could sort of, and that's only one piece, of course, but I wonder if you could sort of unpack how all this has played out for you and how it appears in your work as well.
So this piece, Soft Conjuring, is actually from a photograph that an artist friend of mine, Jody Fawcett, who's a photographer, we got to know each other because he came to a show of mine in Atlanta about 5 years ago of collages, and his background was fashion photography for pretty well-known fashion magazines, but he was starting to do his own work. And he said, I love this collage process. And I said, well, you know what? I want to know more about it. I said, we should do a residency together sometime. And he's like, really? Anyway, long story short, we ended up doing a 2-week residency at the Virginia Center for Creative Arts. And we made 50 collages together. And while we were, sitting on the floor, cutting, pasting, getting to know each other, because we didn't really know each other, but we were like, wow, now we're like bonded. He said, I brought some magazines that I don't think we're going to use for our collages, but they're images I took for a fashion magazine like 15 years ago. And that's his grandmother. And that's a model that we both know her because I actually went to undergraduate with her. Her name is Shana, not Shana, but Shana. And he gave me several images. I took them home, and a year later, I looked at that one, completely different color palette, completely different. The bunny wasn't pink or anything. And I looked at that photo and I said, well, first thing I thought was, I think we've all felt like the girl holding the bunny, where it's like we have this thing we want to do. We're not sure if we should do it. The bunny kind of represents that thing that's a little crazy. And then we have this, maybe a figure, mother, grandmother behind us that's like, a lot of people see that face and see her as judging the girl. I don't necessarily see that, but I'm fine. Everybody sees what they want to see. But But honestly, on a deeper level, so when I was growing up, my mother had severe OCD. I'm not talking about like people use that. We all say, I have OCD. I have OCD. No, my mother had OCD that she couldn't function OCD, like hardcore catatonic, not able to take care of me or my sister. So, and she had had some horrible things happen. Her first husband died suddenly. Then my parents weren't married very long. They got divorced. So everything made it worse. So then my grandparents stepped in and raised me and my sister. And my grandmother was the matriarch. And so in a good way, not in like a scary way. And so to me, that is sort of a painting that I think about as my mother and my grandmother. And my grandmother's looking off like, I've got this. I can make the bed. I can raise these kids. You know, I know you're holding on to this thing that is scary. And she was young, you know, she was like 31 years old. And so years later, she got on the right medication and got the right therapy and was able to function much better. But anyway, that's how that feels for me. And I was just raised by my grandmother. And then my father's sisters were 12 and 10 years older than him. And they were like the matriarchs. My father's dad died when he was a child. And so he was raised by his mom who never remarried, and his two sisters. And I would go visit them in New York. And they were like these strong women. Like literally my aunt Henrietta was like Rosie the Riveter. Like she was like that woman and never had kids, worked her whole life, super strong. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how I don't know how this plays out, but I know as a Gen X person that a significant number of women my age have something called eldest daughter syndrome. I mean, that's not like a medical term, but it's basically that thing where if you're the oldest daughter in a family, you're actually kind of the default wife, because probably like the chances that if you grew up in New York, at least in the 70s and the 80s, being raised by a single mom were about 100%. And so it was always the other women in the family, whether that was someone's old enough to be responsible, but really heartbreakingly shouldn't be responsible daughter, a cool aunt, a grandmother always. And so, you know, but the generational thing, that might happen in other generations. But for Gen X, the way the timing worked out was that those grandmothers were kind of the first wave feminists also. And so when I say my grandmother raised me, I mean, my grandfather died when I was 10, and that woman was like, no man will ever live in this house again. Now she dated and she had offers because she was a wealthy, redheaded, you know, but she was like, nope, you can stay until Monday. And people kept coming to me like, you should get married again. And she's like, and finally she sat me down and she was like, I haven't lived in a house by myself in my entire life until now. Parents, boarding school, college, husband, grandbabies. Sorry. Oh, sorry. That's partly my, you know? And so I grew up with this role model that was had occupied every role. It was like suffering wife, alcoholic, Russian husband, you know, whatever. She raised 2 daughters. Then she raised one of those daughters' daughter. And so I was exposed at a very early age to a woman who valued the idea of having her own castle, right? But I was simultaneously being exposed to the value of a village of women coming together to make everything possible for each other. So it's this really incredible kind of, you know, those are just 2 of many threads. And I think a lot of us had a similar experience because generationally, women were finally starting to get divorced in the 70s. And, you know, en masse. And I think, and, you know, other women were waiting a little longer to start families. All those changes that we sort of accept as how the cultural landscape is now, that all happened during our childhoods, right? With our front row seats to it. And there's no way that that didn't affect us as we grew and became parents or not parents or artists or whatever we became ourselves. So finally, your turn. Thanks for being chill. I hate linear time in that way. I super wish we could do 3 simultaneous streams, and probably we could all handle that, but we are taping it, so thank you.
Thank you all. Very cool, different takes from different angles, and interesting to hear how everyone thinks about this idea. What came to me as I was listening to you all speak is honestly how mysterious being a mom is and becoming a mom was. Being pregnant really felt in many ways just like every day I was waking up to a different mystery and unsure of exactly what I was going to feel and what it was going to be like. And honestly, it still feels that way. And my child is now 13, almost 14, and I still am like leaning into that mystery. And I think what I'm considering in this moment is how that connects to the same feeling that I have when I'm making art and tapping into that same mysterious channel and thread. And the same way that sometimes I'll paint something and it really feels like it's moving through me and I don't even really know what's happening and I'm just going with it. That's how being pregnant felt to me as well. And the birth process. So I think a lot about the way that things move through us and the way that we are channels and portals. And being a channel and a portal, I think my job as an artist is to keep the channel clear so that I can move things through me in a way that feels real and allow the mystery that's there to come through as well. So for example, in this piece behind me, it's called Unplugged. And it really is about allowing things to move through you. Like for real though. Like literally. And I think that that's a big part of my practice as a woman and as an artist and as a mother is like not getting stuck. And I think there are a lot of ways that things can get stuck inside of us. Like I think of rumination as a way things are getting stuck because you're stuck on stupid, you're in a loop. I think of secrets as sort of a dead end, as something that's stuck and like not moving through, not allowing it to move through you. And so same with motherhood and with unmade art. I'm sorry?
With art you don't make.
With art you don't make. Oh, interesting. Yes, I see it. And tampons. Yes, says my big sis. Love you. Yeah, so I think that for me, there are so many parallels between the practice of being a mother. I also am entering a phase now of my life where my mom is turning 80 in about a year. And so also starting to witness the reversal of the caretaking and caregiving roles and what that's going to be like, and trying to let that also move through me. And yeah, I think as portals and as channels and as artists and as mothers, just trying to allow as much as we can to penetrate but then move through us is how, at least for me, I remain grounded and connected to the Great Mother.
Thank you. That's beautiful. I read something on, sorry to be like, I read something on the internet, but I promise you, I made sure.
I promise you
I
did
swear
read
to
something
God,
on the
I made
internet.
sure it was a thing. But that has to do with the idea that human women are some of the only biological females in the animal kingdom that survive past reproductive viability. And so that evolution has selected something about postmenopausal women that remains of like literal evolutionary value, or it wouldn't continue to be like that and actually those lifespans extending, right? Like, and if you think about that, because if the biological imperative is the thing, well, it quite obviously can't be the whole story. But to know that there's evolutionary science that kind of is asking the same question, I think is relevant and interesting. And I think about it a lot because of the time of life that I'm in. So fun. But also, all of what I'm enjoying so much is at this moment in our popular culture, there's so much menopause discourse. And I think that's, again, because generationally, the women that are experiencing it are also inhabiting more positions of power and agency in the culture, and those stories are getting told, and it's happening at the same time. And I love it because that is one kind of representation. It's like, hey, this super important thing happens to slightly more than half of people on Earth. Could we have one in conversation about it, please? Oh my God. So like, if art is supposed to be about human experience, please let it not just be about European straight male experience.
I think just the mysteries, right? You said that. And I think that has inspired so much of my work, is the interior lives of women. And like, I'm learning as I go, just like everyone else. And I literally just had that conversation about menopause too. Like, we never were taught, we didn't know. So we're learning as we go.
It was called The Change.
Yeah.
What the fuck is The Change? It sounds like a Hitchcock movie.
Also, it's like a 15-year change. It's a
it's a process.
Change.
Yeah.
No, it's true. And, and I think it's really interesting. And at this point, any question could be for anyone who feels inspired. But I love what you were saying about this vessel and the portal. And of course, that is the name of the talk today. But I'm super curious about how each of you experiences that, because there's the beautiful mystery and the openness, and a lot of artists of all kinds, and not only artists, but writers, musicians, they talk about being in the zone, not knowing where it comes from, being open and letting it come through you. And that is a beautiful, mystical thing about creativity. Absolutely. I mean, also you have to pair it with like hard work and vulnerability and caring about your technique and trying to get better at your craft and all the things. So it's a lot more than that. But I'm just curious how, as artists, each of you, or any of you that want to speak to this, balances that idea of being open to messages coming through you with like your very justifiable ego and ambition as an artist with a vision and a style and something you would like to say as a person. How do you achieve balance between you and whatever comes through the portal?
I don't think I see it as an either or like a thing that needs balancing.
Cool.
For me, it's the same thing. Anything that comes through me is me, in its ugliness and in its beauty and in its sloppiness and in its precision. And I think the challenge is accepting that and continuing along the path and honing until it maybe is just how you feel like you want it to be, which might be never, but we try.
I tend to look at it as my essence. So if I'm not even me as a person, I'm not Denise, I'm not my birth certificate, I'm not my social security number, I'm none of those things. I'm just an energy and my essence. And I think that is what I'm picking up, like talking about inspiration and being a channel. I now know that I have certain rituals in place that I need to have to be that channel. But it's, for me, I could see it as almost like a radio. It's like a frequency. It's a creative frequency. It's like, for me, being a very much, I'm a water sign, I'm a Pisces. So I see it like this big thing of water. And, you know, there's passing me by all of these ideas, things in the current. And it's just me kind of like hopping in there and, you know, holding on to something, grabbing onto something, trying to make it come through in my language and through my hands, through my eyes. But it's very much, I just see my spirit, in my essence, is it's in the channel. It's already there.
I'm also a Pisces. Is anybody
I
else?
mean, happy birthdays, right? Ish.
No, it was February.
Was that a
March.
minute ago?
It was February. When did
Oh, because it's like almost July right now. What the
Yeah.
fuck? I totally knew that
Yeah.
my best
We're
friend is a
Cancer, so we
Pisces.
are in
Oh
water
my
season,
God.
but we're not Pisces
Yeah.
season.
All that
Yeah.
when you were talking, I was like, "Ooh, it's Pisces season."
Yeah. No. But it is Cancer season.
But it's
And
Cancer
I'm Cancer
season.
moon. I'm double Pisces Cancer.
And that's,
moon.
you know, I
Triple water.
wish it was called something else and wasn't a crab because it's a sign of gentleness and caretaking.
It is. Yeah. The mother sign.
Need the show.
It's the
It's that protective
Yes.
show. Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, I mean, I love water too as part of the conversation because as sort of a young, I mean, I'm more of a Rankian than a Jungian, it doesn't matter, but like the Jungian thing, that kind of depth psychology, archetypal interpretation thing, is extremely obsessed with the idea of the water and the collective unconscious or the subconscious mind, and it kind of being like where it all lives and where we come from and to what we
Because
return.
water is ancestral. So I would like to share something as we're speaking about this. This piece right behind me is called The Journey, and it's about my matriarchs. And on the left is my mother. The pink figure would be me, and then this larger figure is my nana, my grandmother, Honey. But there's like a little wave. I don't know if you could see it with the reflection of the glass, but there's a little wave at our feet, and my mother is Cancer. So I feel like that is kind of like where we can kind of join up and meet each other is in the water, for sure.
I love that. And actually, again, for any of you, that's a really good segue because one thing I wanted to ask you all about was the intentionality of the symbolism, because all of you, aside from being figurative painters with a relationship with whose subject is quite often the female body. Subject is the wrong word. It's like everything is the female body. They're not just drawings of somebody's body. They're always all these other things at once, but they're figurative works, most often of women. But they're also full of incredible small details, a flower, a candle, a shell, and celestial, botanical, like everything. And as I'm getting to know all of you more, it's becoming increasingly obvious just how much intentionality there is in those choices. So I'm wondering, we'll start with you and we'll go through, but if each of you could speak a little bit to that part, because the women's bodies are so obviously the focus of the drama, the narrative, the energy, the meaning, the point, the world, so much of your technical flourishes and incredible stylistic inflections, but everything else in the picture has a role to play. And the more I get to know you, like I said, the more I'm realizing like not one single thing is an accent or, oh, I just want to put a blue thing. How about a teacup? No, that's not. And so please talk a little bit about that specific examples, general idea, maybe how much you plan that, et cetera. Because I would imagine it's both very specific to you and very conscious of archetypal implications.
I think for me, there's a lot of symbolism, and a lot of it has to do with, I think through my work, one of the messages that I'd like to convey is that we are part of nature. We are nature. And so that is something that I play with a lot because I just feel like we've gotten so far removed from our natural state, and so it's something I like to remind myself of, and I like to project that outward. So you'll see a lot of natural motifs, botanical motifs, moons, celestial motifs, and other types of symbolism as well. I think that piece on the wall over there, the woman's face is a mask, and there are a lot of details like that, which for me are about, a true identity or authenticity, and just questioning what the hell that even means. And so the masks that we wear as our actual faces, and what's underneath, and oftentimes the figures in my art, their eyes are closed. And for me, that is about insight and introspection, which is a big part of my art practice. For me, sort of one of the only times I spend a significant amount of time by myself is when I'm painting. And so it is a time that I am able to look inside and try and get to know myself a little bit better. Sometimes I think about how when we close our eyes and we look inwards and we have those insights, that what's inside is as vast and as deep as what's outside. And that can feel a little bit destabilizing, but it's also full of wonder and mystery and curiosity.
Yeah, I know, right? I love that. I mean, it reminds me a little bit of that Jung quote, he looks inside awakes, right? It has to do with inverting the idea of like, is it yet another binary that proves itself increasingly useless is this idea of like what's real and what's imaginary. It's like, excuse me. Oh, it was a dream you had? Well, it's not real then. Just dismiss it. That's not going to work anymore. We've seen how dismissing those kinds of insights, we've seen how far that's gotten us as a society. And, add that to the list of, how a matriarchy might look different for everyone, whether they want it or not. It'll be better. No, in all seriousness, though, I feel like that's a great thing, because when you oftentimes see a figure with their eyes closed, we've been taught that is somehow negative, right? It's like they don't want to see. They're closing their eyes to the reality, right? It's blindness in some way. It's like, no, I want to check in with myself. That's actually what you're witnessing. And what's going on in there is just as important, and not only to me, but to each of us. And so I feel like I love that you mentioned that about the eyes, the mask. I mean, as you look around, it's really fascinating to me to see how there's like 1,000 different threads of what an art history student might have been exposed to in their education in this room, right? I mean, but at the same time, there's a total lack of the fetishization that a lot of those art historical practitioners made. So I can look around the room and I can think about Picasso or Gauguin or Matisse or, but like, I don't really want to think about them, because I feel that the energy, that male gaze, the fetishization, when women wore masks in Picasso, it was out of sexual terror and all kinds of shit we don't need anymore. And so there is something to my mind as an art historian, something very specific that happens when visually I'm reminded about the art history canon, but like in a way that is unmistakably being put to different use, or maybe even just, it's hard for me to say it's not relevant, because as an art history person, it gives me joy to discover things that speak to other things. And yet I would really, really do not want to describe your work in anything that sniffs of a framework of what men did before. I'm struggling with it in real time, as you can see, because it gives me so much pleasure to know that you can take all of the work in this show and drop it into the entire continuum of our history, where it belongs, in conversation with all of those generations. And yet you're all doing something that also kind of pushes back against that paradigm. So I'm wondering if you could all talk about maybe.
Can I talk about the symbolism in that?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Did I not let you?
We didn't get
I'm
to,
such a-
but I have a lot to say about that one.
First of all, thank you for doing that. And obviously, yes, please do that. And then maybe on the other side of it, if you feel like it, talk a little bit about sort of as visual artists, influences, any education, self-taught, whatever, where it comes from. But yeah, oh my God, please forgive me. And yes.
So this piece over here is titled Lady Lazarus, which is a Sylvia Plath poem. And that piece that was done in 2017 or 18. So the work I'm making now, it doesn't look anything like this, but you can also see the same threads in the work. But this piece came from, I have a ton of old magazines, all different kinds, and I was thumbing through, and this sepia-toned ad from the 70s, it was just one of those when in the 70s, there was a whole resurgence of like the antique look, and it had this brown sienna like coloration of these. So, yep, yes. My dad had a clothing store, a women's clothing store. He carried gunny sacks, but he also carried this line and this ad. And so I looked at that and I thought, I bet he carried that in his store. And my father passed away suddenly when I was 20. So I'm always trying to like connect with him in a way. And so this turned into this piece, but the woman in the center is such a matriarch, I think. But speaking of fluids and symbols, she has a nosebleed. And who goes out in public with a nosebleed? But she's like, I don't give a fuck. And then the blood is coming down, like the two stripes sort of represent, could be coming from her vagina. We don't know. So that's sort of what that symbolism is. And the idea of wealth and class and the baby grand piano, and only wealthy people put photos on their piano, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just I'm making a statement about class. I'm also making a statement about there's domestic abuse, there's all kinds of shit that goes on in upper class households as well, and the fact that women still kind of rule no matter what, whether they escape it physically or they escape it emotionally or when they close their eyes. But yeah, so Lady Lazarus is obviously about death and rising again, and that's that. So anyway, thanks for listening.
No, thank you. I don't know. I really do appreciate that, because I think that's a perfect example of how the personal and the broader cultural things can intersect in the most unexpected ways. And then as an artist, you have somewhere to put it when that happens. Yeah.
I think once I understood that the universe spoke in patterns and shapes and colors and symbols, that really just did something to my brain. And it just really like confirmed practices in my own work that I have been doing since I was a child. And I think you were speaking about culturally, like, fitting in these masculine frameworks of art. And I really did feel that coming up as an artist, as a young artist. I always felt very kind of shy and a little embarrassed of like the subject matter of my work. I was having nudes and bodies and things, and it was always a man, right? It's always a man making some kind of comment. I'd have a professor or like a fellow student kind of tease me about that. And so I would, over the years, really like kind of pop my head in and out to see where we were culturally. And it was like, is it time? Is it time for me to come out? And then it popped my head in like, no, I took the temperature. It's not time yet. And, but like, it's undeniably time right now. And I think that's why we see so much of this work being made and the matriarchs, the artists, the femmes, like really stepping forward into those roles as channels, as portals. And I like to call my symbols, like I have my Paramama universe. That's what I call it. And I have symbols that I use over and over again. And they kind of just visit every piece that I'm in. Like if you like everybody's related in the Paramama universe, and like the night skies the moon is something that I have, any kind of cosmic energy I want to put in the work. Of course, nature, natural objects. I'm also an herbalist and really, really love to sit with the plants. So the plants that are in each of my pieces, they're very, very specific for what they do and what they help the body with, and spiritually what they meant, ancestrally how they were used. So they're very, very symbolic in my work, and it's never just like a random smattering of flowers. Like they always have a meaning. I realize that when I have a femme body, she's going to be full. She's going to be voluptuous. She's going to be nude, because why would you want to cover all that up? Excuse me. I realize that when I am honoring my ancestors, my matriarchs, I do cover them up. So they're usually in robes, and I have respect for them that way. But the younger femmes that are in my work, if they're not mothers, they're just femmes. They're out here with their titties out, and they're just relaxing, they're lounging, they're like in nature. And I just feel like I had a child say this to me one time, and I kept that with me to this day. And she saw some of my work and she was like, I want to go in there and I want to live. And this was from a 7-year-old child. And I was like, okay, I have made it because I've adequately conveyed, I've like shared, I've really, really like took what was in here, and put it out in the reality, in the physical reality. So the unseen realms, I've been able to translate that into like the seen realms here. And this is what you all are seeing. So again, like the natural objects, the plants, cactus. I'm a Southern California native. I'm an indigenous person. So I'm going to have a lot of things that are native to the land, things that ground me to the space, things that ground me to my matriarchs, to my ancestors. Again, there's just a lot of patterns. I use some Mesoamerican patterns in the back. Sometimes you can't see. There's something that's really interesting, excuse me, on this piece right here. I don't know if you can see it, the lighting, but on my mother's robe is a pattern of crosses, and it's very much just speaks to her belief system and what she carries with her, and with mine is different. It's the spine, it's like it's my inner knowing, and also the pattern on my grandmother's robe. These are all like very sacred patterns that I like to use. And you also mentioned drawing and making art with people with their eyes closed. And I tend to do that often. And it's for multiple reasons. One of them is, like I said, I'm a Pisces. I like to take naps. So I just like to be like, it just feels good that as as a response. So I do include that in the work. And then other times it's referring to our inner knowing, our inner sight, using our third eye. And so she doesn't have to have her eyes open, like she's feeling her way through the space. And so that's why her eyes are closed. But I love this topic of just symbolism, because like you said, it's everything. Everything has like a reason. And I would love to ask you about this piece and what she's carrying on her lap. Yes.
Yeah, let's talk. I thank you
'Cause you
because
didn't
I
mention
too would
that,
like
so I
to
wanted
talk
to
more
hear
about
that.
the bunny.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Because
was.
you were mentioning that it was like a wild thing that she might be kind of, almost like in a way of like, but rabbits can be known for being sort of timid, but that is a bright pink look at me bunny.
Yeah.
So thank you. Yes.
Well, also it brings into question, is it a real bunny that she dyed pink? Because people do dye their pets. They do. They do. Or it could be a stuffed, taxidermy bunny. But it also represents pregnancy. It can represent fertility. Do I want to have this bunny on my lap? Do I not want to have this bunny? Um, I actually was, I kind of knew I wanted to have a child or children, but didn't plan it out or anything. And got pregnant when I was 26 and had my daughter when I was 27. We got married. It didn't work out. He was an artist. Yeah, that's a whole other topic. But yes, but she's amazing. She's an incredible, incredible human. And I think that I had something to do with it, but children come through you, like Justina was saying, like they come through you and the art comes through. But anyway, that is what that I was thinking about with the bunny, but it also can represent like, it reminded me of being a teenager and wanting to have do the crazy things I wanted to do. And there was some judgment. There was some like, oh, I don't think that's a great idea of the grandmother, and I look back and I'm like, I should have listened, but I had to learn the hard way. So that's what that represents. But I use animals in my work a lot now. And the other pieces, those are a little more recent, but there's the dog, the puppy, and the cat. And animals have become super prominent in my work. And actually, speaking of eyes closed, I have plans to do a whole series of bed rotting of women with their eyes closed sleeping in like a natural history diorama situation where there's like all this wildness going on, but they're just like, I don't need to watch it necessarily, just can
Yes.
chill.
I want that.
So yeah.
I do.
You,
Well, yeah.
I'm sorry. You also asked us about our influences. Okay.
I mean, the question of influence is already like a whole, Pandora's box, and I get that. But artists look at art, and so I'm very curious. I mean, maybe influence isn't the right word, but sort of like, I'm curious about the art that you love, right? And therefore, it would influence you,
Yeah.
but not like, what man told you how to paint that way? That's not what I'm asking.
I love art that features like African spirituality. I love indigenous art. I also have my old my old favorites. I love abstract expressionism and things like that. But I think one of the biggest influences for me would be Chicano art and all of the femme artists that are in the Chicano art movement. Judy Baca, Yolanda Gonzalez is sitting right here in the audience. Diane Gamboa, like I feel like those were women that they just, I could see that, okay, this could be a path for myself. It was very inspiring to see. They were Latina, they were indigenous, they were Chicana, like they were real people to me, like people that I knew, someone that, I am one of those people. And I thought, okay, if these women could create this body of work and have it be so inspiring and have it such a femme narrative and just hitting all these like boxes in my brain where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this. And I go back to their work, Judy Baca, like just beautiful catalog.
Patsy Valdez.
Yes, Patsy
Yeah.
Valdez. Yes. So that was my shit. Like growing up and being a young artist, like those were the people that I was looking at. And like, okay, I think I can make this happen for myself. It gave me like a path for sure.
Have to.
Oh, about
Yeah, for
influences?
both of you.
It's funny because I went to art school in the 80s, and it was mostly
Conceptualism.
conceptualism, yes. And there weren't
Minimalism.
and there was mostly male artists that we were looking at. And so, and then I would grab onto the ones that weren't doing that, like Eric Fischel. I actually like David Sally. I don't ever look at his work now, but the first time I saw that, he was throwing things together, that influenced me, the juxtapositions that he was doing. And then, some of the older masters, yes, I looked at that. But now if you look at my Instagram feed and everything that I save and favorite, it's all women. It is all female painters. I mean, just off the top of my head, it's like, Lynette Yakim, I'm going to mess up her name, Yakim Bodowi. Why are they, I have like really difficult names here. Nejadeka Akunli Crosby, fantastic artist. Jenna Gribben is an incredible painter. Rebecca Campbell, who lives here in LA, love her work. I wrote about her in my thesis, actually. There's just so many female painters, and it's because, and a lot of them are painting women. The ones I'm talking about, they're drawing and representing women. And then when I see a man now painting a woman, like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, like the guy I was married to, like I wouldn't have questioned, like, sure, you're painting a woman. Now I'm like,
go,
what do you do? Why?
Why?
Why? Like, what are you saying? I don't know. So I think that has changed a lot.
Yeah. No, I think that's interesting. And that's part of like one of my favorites of like sort of genres of contemporary art is women who are going back into art history and taking all their favorite parts and then redeploying it as technique for a completely different ameliorative message. Like that specific dynamic of that happening is just just as a person, right? It's far from the only kind of art I look at or appreciate, but when I see it happening, it hits the spot for me as well to see that kind of going. Ooh, maybe we can find a way to love the things about this technique without buying into all the things behind the vision that led to that image and its power dynamics. Like, what would that look like, right? And so reinvention can take many forms, and that's one of them. And that's my perspective on the world as art history. And so I see that idiom, and it makes me happy. But there's so many iterations of things like that, where when you go back into history to create something new out of it, something kind of extra special kind of happens. Has that been your experience?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think, when we were talking about that piece with the mask, and maybe you were talking about Picasso just as it related to that. And what occurred to me when you said that is that how Picasso relied on African art and was inspired by African masks to create his works. And so, nothing is created in a vacuum. And I think, we all have our influences and our inspirations.
They just called it Africanism. Like it was adorable and totally fine.
Yeah, I think, definitely been very inspired by a lot of African, a lot of indigenous art from different places in the world. I studied world arts and cultures in college. And so I think that was probably my first entry point, even before kind of, being enamored with the Klimts and the Egon Schieles and more recent, the Hilma af Klint's and, these kind of European modern artists. I think for me, it was really a connection with indigenous art and really also I come from a design background. So part of what I fell in love with to begin with was textiles and surface pattern design and weaving, and a lot of these textile arts that are traditionally female in many cultures, that where you are creating these incredible motifs and intricate motifs and things like Suzani blankets that have meaning woven into them because they are used for dowries or, different kente cloths or just all of these different otomi embroidery from Mexico. These indigenous print pattern symbols and imbuing the articles that we use every day to cover ourselves and to cover our babies and to cover the robes of our grandmothers. And so for me, that's really, I think, sort of the deepest layer for me of creative inspiration. But gosh, there's no shortage of art and artists and just nature to be inspired by. I think I am definitely in awe if I can allow myself just to go outside with the intention of being in awe. It's very easy to do that. It's very easy to find a painting in a leaf. It's very easy to find a painting in a flower. And in the textiles to see a textile in a dragonfly wing. My little baby cousin came to me. We were in the jacuzzi on Father's Day, and he came and he said, "I got dragonfly." And I just looked at the wing, and it was the most intricate, beautiful pattern, and so we can access these things if we can open ourselves and pay attention to the paintings that are all over the world.
Oh, I love that so much. Thank you. Oh my God. You guys, check it. We've been speaking for more than an hour. Did you even feel that go by? I didn't, because
my legs feel it, but the rest of me
my
doesn't.
leg, right? I could use a stretch. But I want to do two things before they bring out the champagne. Really focuses the mind, doesn't it? The idea of champagne. Which is make absolutely sure that there isn't anything that any of you wanted to say that we didn't already get to, because I want to make sure that it's all out here and for the record, and also give the audience a chance to have questions and comments. So first, make sure, is there anything that you came here wanting to make understood that we did not touch on yet?
I think I just want to say one thing,
Yes.
which is just the power of our art being in conversation. So it's so beautiful to be in conversation with you all, but it's also, I think, really special to have our pieces mingling together and to be able to kind of look at how we all see the world and how we interpret it, and a lot of the similarities and a lot of the differences. And so it's beautiful to have this collaborative experience where we can juxtapose our art and see our art in connection and in conversation with each other. So thank you. Yeah,
I agree with that. The curation is gorgeous. Someone did an incredible job curating and installing the show. Someone. Yes, a round of applause, because I mean, there's a lot of personality in these rooms, and to be able to put it all in here and still achieve balance and harmony is not nothing. So, beautiful. All right, ladies, any questions, any comments? I'm sure you have thoughts. Yes.
My question is Denise Blakeney of Divine Mother
Cosmology. You know what? It's a good question. I mean, it's something that's very much rooted in, the actual root, okay, where we all come from. So we're speaking of the portal. Well, the portal is the Divine Mother. I feel like the earth is an ancestor. The earth is a mother. And I think any feminine quality is of the mother. And I think we all started life from the mother. Okay, so that the Divine Mother cosmology, even speaking about Picasso and how he loved to copy African art, like he was just searching for Divine Mother. He was searching for the Divine Mother, the African, the Black mother. Okay, so that's what I mean when I say Divine Mother cosmology. And that is us returning back to her. That's what we're doing now in this process. As a lot of things are collapsing and frameworks and systems are collapsing around us. And I really feel like it's because the Divine Mother is rising. So that's the Divine Feminine energy. That's Mother, that's Earth, that's Womb, that's Portal, that's Birth, that's all of those things. So when I say Divine Mother cosmology, that's what that is. And I think I picked up a lot of this information ancestrally through the things that I've learned in that creative space as being a channel. Also, all the birth initiations really opened my eyes into things that I just never ever dreamed or imagined. And then suddenly I have all this information and all this sight. So I really feel like that's the reflection of that. So I hope
And there is a whole, I mean, it's looser than other academic disciplines, but there is a sort of body of scholarship or a kind of decentralized library of literature and information that's collected instances of that being implemented in religious and spiritual and cultural traditions, like globally and historically. Or if you look at like origin story, comparative origin story mythologies from, you know, a random sampling of human history, you're going to find the ways in which the idea of the mother was
the feminine
described.
culture. It's in every culture and civilization, and it was like the first one. And a good book to read is The Great Cosmic Mother.
Yeah.
The Great Cosmic Mother, and it's just that'll blow your wig off. Like seriously.
It's true. It's true. And like this concept is even being applied in really interesting ways in other disciplines. Like there's an environmental or ecological concept of where they're now starting to talk about the idea of the mother tree as something to orient a new kind of, you know, wildland stewardship around. I mean, you know, the list is literally like endless, but what's happening is all of this has always been there. To your exact point, though, Denise, what's happening now is it's coming to the surface. It's showing up. I follow, you know, whatever. Social media is a whole other freaking thing, but I will tell you this. Witch Threads is incredible. I joined that's literally like the Threads community, and I was like, oh, this will be fun. Let me just join Witch Threads. Girl, because so much of it is, so much of that discourse is about introducing us and teaching us to the bigger ideas. And then part two is, how do you do this at home? How do you enact this at home? You would be surprised at the spiritually charged materials that already live in your house. Candles, salt,
And that you do naturally. Yeah.
Exactly.
And
so
you're remembering.
Yeah. And once you know, you don't unknow. And so all of this is coming to us as well. And women have been seeking it, but it's, you know, all the timeliness we keep referring to. I see it in a million ways every single day.
All right, one more member call for all of you. Thank you.